Have you ever jolted awake at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding, a vivid image of a snake slithering through your dreams, still burning behind your eyelids? And then spent the next hour lying there, feeling unsettled, wondering why your mind conjured up that particular creature? If you're someone who absorbs emotions from every room you walk into, who feels the weight of other people's moods like they're your own, these dreams aren't just random neural firing. They're emergency broadcasts from your unconscious mind. Carl Jung spent decades studying these exact dreams, and what he discovered will completely transform how you understand every snake that has ever appeared in your sleep. Picture Jung in his study in 1920, sitting across from a young woman who had traveled from across Europe to see him. She's trembling as she describes her recurring nightmare, a black serpent living in her belly, dormant but always there. She tells Jung she can feel it moving sometimes, especially when she's around certain people, or in certain situations. Most doctors would have dismissed this as hysteria, but Jung leaned forward with intense curiosity. He told her something that would change her life. Snake dreams usually occur when the conscious mind is deviating from its instinctual basis. In other words, when your rational, overthinking mind has completely severed its connection to your gut wisdom, your unconscious sends you the most ancient, powerful symbol it can, the serpent. But Jung's insight went even deeper. He discovered that whenever the snake symbolism appears in dreams, it is always representative of the lower motor centers of the brain and of the spinal cord. Think about what that means. Your dreams are literally connecting you to the most primitive survival-oriented parts of your nervous system, the same neural networks that kept your ancestors alive for millennia by sensing danger before it appeared, by knowing who to trust before they spoke a word. Now, if you're an empath or highly sensitive person, this becomes absolutely crucial to understand. You know that feeling when you walk into a coffee shop and instantly know there's tension between the couple at the corner table? Or how you can sense someone's bad mood before they've even opened their mouth? That's your instinctual wisdom operating at full capacity. But here is what happens to most sensitive people. Because feeling so much can be overwhelming and exhausting, you start living exclusively in your analytical mind. You overthink every social interaction, second-guess every gut feeling, and slowly disconnect from the very gift that makes you who you are. That's precisely when the snakes start showing up in your dreams. Let me tell you about that woman Jung worked with. As their sessions continued, something extraordinary happened. She reported that the serpent in her belly had begun to move. It turned around, she told Jung excitedly. Then, over the following weeks, she felt it traveling slowly upward through her body. Finally, in what became one of Jung's most documented cases, she dreamed that the serpent emerged from her mouth, but its head had turned golden. Jung understood immediately that this wasn't a nightmare. It was a healing dream. The woman's repressed instinctual wisdom was literally moving from her unconscious depths up into her conscious awareness, transformed and ready to guide her life decisions. Now, here is something that will blow your mind. Jung discovered that the location of the snake in your dream reveals exactly what your psyche is trying to tell you. When you dream of a snake beneath you, rising up from the ground or from water, something that's been buried deep in your unconscious is demanding to be acknowledged. Maybe it's an intuition about a relationship you keep dismissing as paranoia. Maybe it's a career change you've been too scared to consider. One of Jung's patients described this perfectly. It felt like something essential was rising up from depths I didn't even know existed, demanding to be seen and integrated. But when the snake appears at your eye level, slithering past you or coiled nearby, this is your psyche's way of saying, we need to have a conversation right now, and you can't ignore this anymore. Jung called these moments direct confrontations with unconscious material, the psychological equivalent of your inner wisdom tapping you on the shoulder and refusing to be dismissed. The most overwhelming version is when you dream of snakes above you, hanging from trees, dropping from the ceiling, or writhing in the sky overhead. For empaths, this often happens when you've absorbed so much emotional chaos from others that your system is completely overloaded. Your unconscious is showing you that you're feeling crushed by forces beyond your control, and you desperately need to reestablish boundaries. Think about your own life for a moment. When was the last time you had that sinking feeling about someone, but talked yourself out of it because you didn't want to seem judgmental? How did that turn out? This is exactly the kind of disconnection from instinctual wisdom that triggers snake dreams. Jung documented the most intense version. Dreams of seas or floods of snakes, hundreds of them everywhere you look. He called this a flood of unconscious contents. What happens when you have suppressed your instincts for so long that they all come rushing back at once, demanding attention. I came across a powerful case where a teacher had exactly this type of dream. She'd been ignoring her gut feelings about a toxic work environment for months, convincing herself she was being too sensitive, that she needed to toughen up and stop absorbing everyone's stress. Then came the nightmare, an endless ocean of snakes, and she was drowning in them. When she woke up, she finally understood. Her psyche wasn't going to let her ignore the situation any longer. Within a week, she'd started setting boundaries at work, and within a month, she'd found a new position that honored her sensitive nature instead of punishing it. But here's where Jung's research gets really fascinating. He found that the snake's behavior in your dream is just as important as its location. If you dream of a coiled snake, perfectly still, that often represents potential wisdom that's ready to be activated, like a spring loaded with energy, waiting for you to have the courage to access it. A slowly moving snake might be your unconscious gently trying to guide you towards something important, while an aggressive or striking snake usually means you've been ignoring urgent inner messages for far too long. One of Jung's most remarkable cases involved a businessman who prided himself on his logical, rational approach to everything. He started having dreams where snakes would rise up through cracks in the sidewalk as he walked to work. He tried to step around them, but more would appear, until eventually the entire street was writhing with serpents. Jung recognized this pattern immediately. The man's conscious mind was so rigidly disconnected from his instincts that his unconscious was literally breaking through the foundation of his controlled world. Through their work together, the man learned that every snake represented an intuitive insight he'd been dismissing. The more he ignored his gut feelings about business deals, relationships, and life decisions, the more chaotic his snake dreams became. But as he began honoring those instincts, the dreams transformed. The snakes became less threatening, sometimes even helpful guides, leading him toward opportunities he never would have noticed with his analytical mind alone. Now, let's talk about what the emotional tone of your snake dream reveals. Jung discovered that if you feel curious about the snake in your dream, even if you're also afraid, that's your unconscious telling you you're ready to integrate this wisdom. Your psyche is essentially saying, yes, this might be scary, but you're strong enough to handle what I'm about to show you. But if you feel pure terror with no curiosity whatsoever, that usually means you need to approach the integration more slowly with more support. Your system might be too overwhelmed to process major changes right now, and that's perfectly okay. Jung always emphasized that psychological growth happens at its own pace. Here is something most people do and know. Jung also paid attention to the color of dream serpents, and each color carries specific psychological meaning. A black snake typically represents shadow material aspects of yourself or your situation that you've been denying or avoiding. A green snake often signals new growth, healing, or renewal trying to emerge in your life. Golden or yellow serpents usually represent wisdom, intuition, or spiritual insight that's ready to be integrated. And red snakes? They often symbolize life force, passion, or creative energy that's been suppressed. Jung worked with an artist who kept dreaming of a brilliant red snake that would appear whenever she was on the verge of a creative breakthrough. Initially, she was terrified because the snake seemed so powerful and aggressive. But Jung helped her understand that the serpent represented her creative life force, which she'd been suppressing for years out of fear of failure and judgment. Once she embraced the snake's energy instead of fighting it, her artistic work exploded into something magnificent and authentic. So what do you actually do when you wake up from a snake dream? Here's Jung's practical approach, and it's completely different from looking up generic dream interpretations online. First, sit with the dream while the emotions are still fresh. Don't immediately try to rationalize it away or figure out what it means. Instead, feel into the experience. How did the snake move? What was the quality of its presence? Were you terrified, curious, or strangely calm? Then ask yourself these specific questions that Jung used with his patients. Where in my life right now am I disconnecting from my instincts? What truth have I been avoiding because it seems too uncomfortable or inconvenient? What boundary do I know I need to set, but keep talking myself out of? Jung discovered that people who learned to work with their snake dreams instead of fearing them developed what he called instinctual intelligence, the ability to navigate life guided by deep inner knowing rather than just rational analysis. For sensitive people, this becomes a superpower. Instead of being overwhelmed by all the energy they absorb from others, they learn to use their serpent wisdom to instantly discern what is theirs and what belongs to someone else. Think about this. How many times have you walked away from an interaction feeling drained and confused, not sure why? A person with integrated serpent wisdom would have felt that energy drain starting and either set a boundary or left the situation entirely. The snake represents that level of instinctual self-protection. One woman Jung worked with used to dream of being constricted by a massive python. The dreams were terrifying, and she'd wake up feeling suffocated and panicked. Through their analysis together, she realized the constriction wasn't punishment. It was necessary containment. She'd been scattering her energy in too many directions, saying yes to every request, never focusing on what truly mattered to her. The python was teaching her the power of conscious limitation, of choosing her path deliberately instead of being pulled in every direction by other people as needs and expectations. As she learned to embrace the snake's message and started setting boundaries, something beautiful happened. The constricting dreams stopped, and instead she began dreaming of snakes that moved with graceful purpose, sometimes even guiding her toward opportunities and insights she never would have discovered on her own. But here is what Jung found most remarkable. People who learn to integrate their serpent dreams often report a profound shift in how they experience their sensitivity. Instead of feeling like a burden, it becomes a gift. Instead of absorbing everyone's chaos, they learn to sense what serves them and what doesn't, often before entering a situation. The snake isn't your enemy. It's not a symbol of evil or danger, despite what our cultural conditioning might tell us. In Jung's understanding, it's the part of you that knows what you need before your rational mind catches up. It's your inner wisdom wrapped in a form that absolutely demands attention and respect. Jung wrote in his Red Book, "The serpent is an adversary and a symbol of enmity, but also a wise bridge that connects right and left through longing, much needed by our life." He understood that the snake serves as a bridge between your conscious and unconscious minds, between your analytical thinking and your instinctual knowing. Next time you dream of a snake, don't wake up in fear. Wake up with gratitude. Thank your unconscious for sending you one of the most powerful symbols of transformation and healing known to human psychology. Your psyche just gave you a direct line to wisdom that most people never access. What was the most vivid snake dream you've ever had? I want to hear about it in the comments. Where was the snake? How did it move? And how did you feel? I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely fascinated by the messages your unconscious minds are sending. And if this shifted how you think about your dreams, hit subscribe, because next week we're exploring what Jung discovered about flying dreams and his insights about what they reveal about your relationship with reality itself will completely change how you see those soaring nighttime adventures. Remember, your dreams aren't random. They're personalized guidance from the deepest, wisest parts of yourself. And if you're brave enough to listen, they just might transform your life.